Dr. Road from Mobilant. What I'm about to share is purely my personal impression and could simply be a misunderstanding on my part. Let's talk about Shimano Dura-Ace crank arms and carbon crank arms. After testing and comparing them, I think I've started to understand why professional riders prefer Shimano crank arms. To begin with, I swapped out the Dura-Ace 165mm crank arms for a carbon crank arm from ELILEE. The main reason for this change was cost. The Dura-Ace crank arms were too expensive, and I couldn't find a used set. I also didn't want to replace the bottom bracket since it required switching to a dub standard spindle, which often uses aluminum or carbon spindles, materials I wasn't particularly keen on. Dub bottom brackets, when combined with metal bearings and metal spindles, seem to have wear issues. The ELILEE crank arms, with a Q factor of 151mm, are slightly wider than Shimano's 148mm. I adjusted it to 149.5mm, which is about a 0.75mm difference per side, roughly the thickness of a fingernail. Carbon crank arms aren't something I would outright recommend unless you're aiming for a specific use case, like time trials. For me, the first impression during powerful sprint pedaling was a slight sense of unease. Carbon crank arms are extremely lightweight but thinner than aluminum ones, which might be why they felt less direct under heavy force. When applying maximum pedal force, it almost seemed as though the crank arm flexed. However, this could easily have been an optical illusion caused by frame flex. Although carbon may have higher stiffness in theory, its lightweight construction compared to aluminum can make it feel less solid during extreme efforts. When sprinting, I found the pedaling response on the Dura-Ace crank arms to be more satisfying. Interestingly, the Ultegra crank arms, being heavier, are said to offer even greater stiffness. My personal take is that while carbon crank arms might excel in time trials or flat terrain, they may feel slightly lacking in responsiveness for sprinters or on mountainous routes. The damping properties of carbon, however, reduce vibrations, which can help minimize fatigue during long rides. This is definitely a plus. When it comes to power transfer, Dura-Ace crank arms are structurally more efficient due to the inherent strength of metal. Research also confirms that metal crank arms exhibit minimal flex, leading to consistent and direct power transfer during pedaling. This aligns with my experience. Manufacturers of carbon crank arms tend to compare their products only with other carbon crank arms, emphasizing weight-to-stiffness ratios. Based on tests conducted by experts, aluminum crank arms can deliver 880 watts over a crank rotation of 160 degrees. This produces only a 1.6% energy loss, translating to about 4.8 watts if you're pedaling consistently at 300 watts. The slight flex in crank arms acts like a spring, temporarily absorbing and then returning energy, but this flex can feel less direct than a metal counterpart. Shimano crank arms, with their minimal flex, deliver a more precise and responsive pedaling experience. Carbon crank arms, such as the THM Clavicula, are highly regarded for their incredible weight-to-stiffness ratio, but come with an extremely high price tag. These crank arms use carbon spindles and are built to DUB standards, making them ultra-light yet very stiff. However, they might not offer the best value for money. Shimano, on the other hand, maintains its reputation for delivering solid, reliable crank arms that excel in both stiffness and power transfer. They might feel heavier, but that added weight contributes to their structural integrity. As for shorter crank arms, they are becoming increasingly popular for their biomechanical advantages. They allow for higher cadence and better energy efficiency in terms of total power output, measured in watts, not just torque. Shorter crank arms also reduce body sway during pedaling, improving overall comfort. If you don't experience discomfort or pain with your current crank length, there's no urgent need to switch. But if you're dealing with joint pain or other issues, trying shorter cranks might be worth considering. Did you find this video helpful? Please consider subscribing and hitting the like button. Your feedback and comments are invaluable for creating future content. This has been Dr. Road from Masterbooks. Thank you for watching.